Well, Bitcoin went public, began trading on the New York Stock Exchange yesterday. The shares of the crypto infrastructure firm BitGo jumped nearly 25% in their New York Stock Exchange debut, with shares rising to an intraday high of $24.50. Now, the offering priced above expectations, valuing the company at more than $2 billion. And back in December of last year, BitGo received conditional approval for a U.S. trust bank charter. Joining me live here at the New York Stock Exchange this morning is Mike Belshe, CEO of BitGo. Mike, welcome back. Great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well. So you rang the opening bell yesterday to mark BitGo's IPO, and you've been at this for over a decade. So now that BitGo is public, what do you plan to do with the proceeds?
Great question. Look, by the way, a lot of people frame this question a little bit as though this is some sort of an ending. It actually is just like a change. Mm-hmm. You know, if there's any end, when you raise money in private markets, you have investors that started 13 years ago in our case, and it's fantastic that they get a liquidity event. They hard-earned, great patience, wonderful people. As we go to the next level, look, business has been scaling across the world. People don't know this, but in addition to the OCC charter that you just mentioned a few minutes ago, we also have charters in Europe. We have them in Dubai. We have them in Singapore. The reason we've been doing that is because we need to meet our customers where they are. Americans work with American banks and American financial institutions. That's BitGo. Europeans work with European banks and European financial institutions. That's BitGo. So we hit all of those. Anyway, it's going to allow us to scale the business. We haven't used a ton of capital in our lifetime. We're a profitable business, so we don't have a huge need for it, kind of for any particular big project, but absolutely with our financial services that we run, we're going to put that to work right away.
Yeah, and speaking of which, Mike, you're talking about meeting customers where they're at, and given the institutional adoption as well as growth of the retail investor market when it comes to digital assets as well as crypto, where are you focused on right now, and what do you mean when you're talking about scaling? What will that look like?
Well, we're infrastructure, right? So one of the differences between us and other companies is that we're not a retail exchange, right? But we work with U.S. exchanges, international exchanges, we work with crypto companies, tokenization of stocks, we work with stablecoins, all of these things. At the core of what we do, of course, is security and safety. A lot of people sometimes say we're a custodian. Sort of. I mean, we did have to build world-class custody. We did have to go get the highest level of regulatory oversight to do that, and that's all because you have to build on top of a really solid foundation. I think if you look across the globe, you find nobody that's spent so much time on the wallets, making sure that the security component of that is rock solid, and then on top of that, the custodial overlay. From there, you can build financial services. So whichever application you're building, you use BitGo, and that's infrastructure.
Yeah, and speaking of infrastructure, where do you think are the biggest opportunities right now when it comes to crypto infrastructure, not just heading into this year, but beyond?
Well, stablecoins, I think have been the rage for 2025. I think they still are going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity for 2026. Stablecoins are simply a better payment rail than the banking system, and people are discovering this very quickly. We no longer live in a world where it's isolated and we have like banks as the gatekeepers to each region. Instead, money moves internationally very quickly, and it all happens on digital rails. So that's one. The other one that everybody's talking about right now, finally having an SEC that's open to figuring out how do you innovate on tokenized equities, and they're very open to it. It's a responsible approach. It's a way to bring innovation and change into those markets that hasn't existed for decades. So that is coming fast and furious. I think in 2026 we see a lot of moves there.
And finally, before I let you go, as we're looking ahead to the regulatory landscape here in the U.S. as well as abroad, you're also talking about expanding services. So when we're talking about, say, trading, staking, custody, how are you positioning yourself to manage risk out there?
Actually, I think we manage risk better than anybody. Part of building that foundation is mitigating risk. And remember, when you price a trade, there's three things that go into it. There's the A, the cost of the underlying asset. There's B, how much profit you want to take. And there's C, factoring in your risk. Most companies in crypto have not been doing that over the last decade. With BitGo, we can start to do that. We offer off-exchange settlement. We do our own trading, by the way, through exchanges that work. The money stays in cold storage, qualified custody, the utmost of safety, and yet we can trade away at these exchanges that otherwise would be pre-funded. So a lot of growth is going to happen there. As traditional finance comes in, which is the big unlock from 2025, I think our TAM, our addressable market, just doubled last year because of the regulatory finally opening up. all of those parties look to be able to trade, to be able to do these services in risk mitigated ways. Frankly, there's nobody else on the planet that does that like BitGo.
Well, Mike, great having you on. Congratulations on going public. Hopefully, now that you're a New York Stock Exchange listed company, we'll have you back in the new year.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.